If you've ever had a crush on someone or had your heart broken, you know that love can feel physical. It can ache in your chest, it can twist in your stomach, and leave your whole body buzzing. But expressions like these aren't just poetic. They're also a bit scientific. Researchers have been able to observe where we feel love in our bodies, where the brain lights up when we experience it, and even how it manifests between two people. So let's dig into how science answers the question, where is love? Let's start with where love is felt in the physical body. The expressions that connect emotions to body parts, like feeling weak in the knees, might seem like modern idioms, or maybe something that Shakespeare invented. But these kinds of phrases have been around for a long time, maybe as much as 3,000 years. In a paper from 2024, a team of researchers investigated ancient texts from the region that is now Iraq. They were written in a language called Akkadian and date back to the Neo-Assyrian period around 900 to 600 BCE. The researchers used an algorithm to find places in the text where emotions and body parts were mentioned together. Then they mapped where those emotions were described as being felt. Considering how ancient the culture being studied was, maybe it's not surprising that some of the results sound pretty different from what we're familiar with today. Like the fact that the body part most associated with sexual arousal was the ankle, unless you're into that kind of thing. Or that these Neo-Assyrian writers felt suffering in their armpits. Love was even associated with the liver, as were several other emotions like happiness and, to a lesser extent, schadenfreude. Meanwhile, the researchers also identified clusters of roughly similar emotions that reference similar body parts. For example, love form a cluster with pride and desire due to their mutual connection with the liver. But love also showed up in one body part the researchers described as, quote, interesting. The knees. So who knows, maybe the phrase weak in the knees is 3,000 years old. Or at least its Akkadian equivalent. If you want to figure out where people feel emotions today, you can also look through a bunch of texts. But you can also just, ask them. Several years before the Neo-Assyrian study, a mostly different group of researchers teamed up to do just that. Their 2018 paper covered a few different experiments, one of which had more than 400 participants draw on a picture of a human body where they felt different emotions. Putting all the data together, love was felt mostly in the head and torso, which lines up fairly well with those ancient descriptions. A similar study published in 2020, which featured thousands of participants in over 100 countries, found remarkably similar patterns for where emotions are felt across cultures. So no matter where you're from, love seems to hit in pretty familiar places. But in all of this research, love was treated as one big feel-good emotion. In real life, love isn't so one-size-fits-all. The love you feel for, say, a romantic partner is probably different from the love you feel for your pet. Yet another study published in 2023 tried to break love down into finer categories, asking participants to map where they felt 27 different types of love. They found all types of love were felt in the head, but the stronger the love, the more widespread it became. The strongest kinds of love, passionate love, true love, and love for life, were felt all over the body. Less intense love, like love for strangers, mostly stayed in the head. And types in the middle, like parental love or love for friends, spread to the heart. Speaking of your head, let's talk about where love shows up in your brain. Scientists have studied romantic and maternal love in the brain for years. And once again, that research group that worked on our ancient texts and modern body maps wanted to expand the picture. They investigated 6 different types this time: love for romantic partners, children, friends, strangers, pets, and nature. The study participants were placed inside the functional MRI scanners, which measure brain activity while you're performing a specific action. In this case, the participants simply had to listen to short stories designed to evoke each kind of love. As for the results of all the story time, the brain patterns changed based on how close the bond was and whether the love involved someone else. Romantic love, parental love, and love of friends activated many of the same regions. Love for strangers was less widespread than these closer bonds. And while love for pets activated fewer regions overall, there was a big difference between the brain patterns of participants who actually had pets and those who didn't. Meanwhile, love of nature activated a somewhat different set of regions in the brain, including an area associated with viewing landscapes, which the participants were not, in fact, doing at the time. So while spending time in nature is certainly good for you, it's no replacement for the warm fuzzies you get from someone you love. Now, so far, we've looked at where love exists inside a person, both in the body and the brain. But love often happens between people, which can manifest as a phenomenon called synchrony. As the name suggests, synchrony occurs when two people's bodies sync up, like their heart rates and breathing. It's commonly seen between moms and their babies, but scientists think it may play a role in romantic relationships too. For their paper published in 2022, one research team turned to a 1990s classic for finding a partner: speed dating. 32 college students went on a series of 5-minute dates, while the researchers tracked their movements and electrodermal activity, basically how well a patch of skin conducts electricity. Electrodermal activity is mostly influenced by the amount of sweat secreted by your sweat glands, which is controlled by your autonomic nervous system, the part of your nervous system that controls things you don't have to think about. So having an emotional response to something, like excitement about a date you're really vibing with, can change the amount of sweat and therefore change the electrodermal activity. In addition to providing all this biometric data, at the end of each date, the participants rated how interested they were in each other. After crunching the numbers, the researchers found that when both members of a speed dating pair were interested, their nervous systems tended to sync up. Their movements were more coordinated, and their skin conductance was more similar. In other words, their bodies were responding to each other in real time. Of course, all this was done with a bunch of strangers forming brand new connections. But other research suggests this kind of biological synchrony exists in long-term couples too. So maybe this is the next evolution of reality dating shows. Forget dramatic entrances and first impression roses. Just hook everyone up to some sensors for a few minutes and see whose nervous systems actually sync up. If so, congratulations, you're compatible. In the end, the answer to the question, where is love, depends on how you look at it. Love shows up in the body as physical sensations, in the brain as patterns of activity, and even between people in the way their nervous systems synchronize. It doesn't really exist in just one place, not in a single organ, a single brain region, or even squarely within an individual person. Instead, it permeates our bodies, our brains, and our relationships with one another. It's less like a specific point on a map and more like a network of places that make us human. But none of this is going to stop me from hearing the question, where is love, and answering, baby, don't hurt me, no more. Funding for this video was provided by UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center as part of its Spreading Love Through the Media initiative, supported by the John Templeton Foundation and Acton Family Giving.